Hello, everybody. I'm Amber.
And I'm Maddie.
And we're Witches Talking Tarot. And today we are giving you another installment of the Trace Trees series. And today we are covering the trees that represent the life cycle. What do I mean by that? Well, listen and find the fuck out. Sorry, Amber's in a really good mood tonight.
We had some amazing, it is, and we
yeah.
had some amazing episodes. We just talked a bunch about a bunch of stuff that I'm not going to get into, but like, damn.
Check out Bohemian Grove, y'all.
Yes.
Last episode.
And half of what we talked about wasn't even recorded, and it's like, fuck, why is this? Yeah. Anyway,
that's how it goes when you have interesting conversations, even when the camera's not rolling.
We need, like, speaking of social media and media, we just need, like, a camera crew, like keeping up with Amber and Maddie situation. So then it's always recorded.
Right? So if you are looking for a piece to add to your portfolio, and you're like a videographer, your favorite witches.
Seriously, because like our conversations, dude, I do kind of feel like we sound like that 70s show when they're like, we come up with the best ideas, and let's record this, and then they record it and play it back, and it's like, like the stupidest shit.
Oh god, that's why I will never, ever, ever watch a video of myself on any kind of hallucinogen. I don't need to know. I just want to remember how I remember it, all bright and colorful. Not where I'm all like, what the fuck's going on? What the fuck's going on?
Tweak.
No, just kidding.
I mean, no, I shouldn't have said that. I'm sorry, not tweaking.
You meant like South
Park
tweak?
Yes.
Yes. So,
anyway, these trees are very...
yes, speaking of South Park, there's a lot of pine trees in South Park, but we're covering the pine, the holly, and the oak today, which is... We've talked about doing this in the wintertime for like over a fucking year. So
very winter-heavy trees. Well, first of all, do you mind if we start with the... Well, I wrote it in an order. I'm sorry, guys. Because, like, each tree, they go together so beautifully for life, you know? Yeah. So I guess pine?
Pine is for protection and purity.
And resilience. Fertility and resilience. Yes. So, like, pine is an evergreen, which means it stays green all around. It doesn't turn brown. The leaves don't turn brown and wither away like the other tree we'll be discussing, the oak. This one, it's
and the holly. The holly leaves definitely.
Yeah.
I've had them in my yard. They do eventually fall and turn brown, and very painful if you step on them. Very fucking painful if you step on them.
But these trees survive, and so a lot of the research that I was doing spiritually, they can represent like just again surviving.
Yes, because you can eat them. They provide you with essential nutrients. Like the pine needles give you vitamins A and K, or A and C. The pine nuts are edible, and when you roast them, they're fucking delicious. And the inner pine bark can be used to make a flour that you can like thicken up like soups and stews with, or you can even make a bread out of it. So like,
or you can just munch on the fucking bark.
You can just munch on the bark, and you say survival, and it's like you think about humans in the wintertime, and there's this tree that gives in every way. It gives you shelter, it gives you nutrients, it gives you fire and warmth. Like survival. That tree is survival.
Well, and I mean, I had read that there were situations where like pine trees were used as a place to go when it was cold because they still had all their things. Like, they had an almost shelter.
Yes. Because, like, the
all
way
the other
that the pine
are
boughs are, they catch the snow, so what's under the tree is usually dry.
Yes.
And you can build a fire. And if it's not a dead tree, you're not going to catch the tree itself on fire.
Right.
So it's a nice place to take some shelter, some seclusion from the elements. And what I like about all of these trees that we picked for today, they are associated with the gods of thunder. So like Thor, Perun, Parkunas, Zeus, I can't think of any other thunder gods.
Why do you think that is?
Well, each tree, there's a different reason. So the holly tree is said to be lightning resistant. So the holly tree is lightning resistant, and it doesn't catch fire or generally get hit by lightning. So it's associated with the thunder gods because it can repel their lightning.
Okay.
Oak is associated with the thunder gods because it gets hit by lightning more than almost any other tree, which there are scientific reasons for it. Usually it is the tallest thing in the landscape, and there's another reason for that.
I mean, it's also huge, so it's like a giant...
Oh, it's got a high water content, so it actually attracts the lightning to it.
Okay.
So those two things make it the most hit thing by lightning. So it's associated with the thunder gods and with the pine tree. I don't remember why it's associated with the thunder gods. But the pine tree is fucking amazing. You know there is a pine tree that is 4,800 years old.
I believe it.
It is called Methuselah. That's the name given to it.
So
and it's
curious.
In California.
California.
Yes.
I'm not surprised. California's got some pretty big fucking trees.
It is one of the world's oldest living organisms. And
like the mushroom.
Right, exactly.
Is that what you're going to say?
Yes. There was a 4,900-year-old one that we cut the fuck down. So humans, stop that bullshit. This thing was almost 5,000 years old, and we cut it down to build a swimming pool or to make a building out of its lumber. It has seen eras of humanity come and go, and we are so fucking arrogant that we cut it down for our own fucking pleasure, and I will get off my soapbox.
No, it's totally true. But you know what? We say that, and I'm gonna give us some food for thought, because I hadn't thought this until now. So we've always cut down trees. As long as there has been fire, we've been using wood. I mean, granted, we probably collect the wood, blah, blah, blah. Is the problem us cutting down all the trees, or is the problem that the earth is overpopulated and we have to overcut the fucking trees to get wood to make houses, to get wood to make fuel, to get wood to make fucking paper and all this
That's
shit?
a great thing to say. And you know what? It brings up a fine point that with all these trees that are held in holy regard, there are certain ways that it's okay to cut them down.
Right.
And there are certain ways that you're allowed to deal with them, spiritually speaking. And then there are certain ways that you're not supposed to, because it's considered disrespectful to the earth and that spirit of the tree. So from the standpoint of all of that, I say the problem is we no longer do it by the old ways. So we're not respectful. We're doing things en masse. We're not doing things by hand. We're not doing things carefully. We are just going willy-nilly at it with the technology that we came up with, because we evolved way the fuck too quickly for the rest of the fucking world, and we need to take a goddamn chill pill and just like stop.
Well, and speaking of like...
Sorry.
No, it's okay. Speaking of winter trees, the amount of trees cut down for Christmas. And I'm bringing that up because, like, I'm so conflicted on that, because you want to, you don't want the plastic trees, because then they just go in a landfill.
Right. And so, like, when I was actually reading, because, like, these are all Christmas trees types, right? Yeah. So, like, even though, like, the holly tree rules the dark half of the year and the oak tree rules the light half of the year, the oak tree is still comes into play at Christmas time, because in the Celtic belief, that's when the Holly King and the Oak King have their battle, and the Oak King takes over on the winter solstice, and the days get longer, and so it's still dark part of the year, but the Oak King is now in control, and that's how the oak tree comes into play, as well as the fact that the oak tree is the tree of life for at least the Norse, the Slavs, and the Celtic pantheon. Okay, so oak tree, damn, there was a place
well,
Christmas
like,
trees. So, like, they were brought in specific ways, and it wasn't usually the whole tree. It was, like, the straight branch that you could cut off of it and bring in. Boughs of holly were brought in, not an entire holly tree. Pine boughs were brought in, or pine boughs, like, there's so many crazy magical uses for pine boughs that I read about for this.
Of, like,
well, like, trees. Nailing pine boughs to the barn door, because anyone with ill intentions can't come in that way, because pine is for protection.
Okay. Yeah, all of these trees, actually, I noticed had some protection.
Well, I didn't read anything with oak with protection. Holly, yes, protection because the spiny things.
For me, oak is very protective just because it's, to me, that grandfather energy.
Well, and I get that. I was just saying, like, that's, like,
specifically,
I didn't read,
so
I'm not saying
apologize.
you didn't read, like, because you totally, I mostly read strength with the oak, but protection and strength kind of go hand in hand.
So maybe that was my own assumption.
But that's okay, because, like, the vibe you get from the tree totally matters, and that's, like, one of the things I love about this episode's, like, our Trace Trees series, because, like, it's so much fun for me to learn the magical, the medicinal, and the scientific, everything about the tree and see how it overlaps. Because, like, we talk about pine being associated with, like, survival. And it's because all these different uses.
Yes.
Like, pine lumber is used for making our shelters as well as our furniture, right? So, like, that's our stability, right? So, survival.
And stability was one of them.
Yeah, it was. I forgot about that. Like,
stability and resilience is what stuck out for me.
All of them have a fertility aspect. Like, with the pine tree, it's because of the pine cone. And I found out all these
You can eat the pine cone too. Okay, so you can't. The pine cone holds seeds that are edible. Yeah, so like everything is like edible. Yeah.
Oh, like that's what I was saying.
That's where pine nuts come from.
That's where pine nuts come
from.
Am
I stupid or what?
Well, not everybody knows until you know. But I grew up eating them.
But it makes sense. They're called pine nuts. What the heck?
Right, yeah.
Like, and you make pesto out of them.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Yes. I forgot about that.
Yeah.
But yeah. Like pine also, you make wine out of pine. So like pine in the Greek pantheon is associated with
that's right.
It's associated with Dionysus and Bacchus. But it's also sacred to Pan because he was in love with a nymph named Pitys, Pitys, and the North Wind was also in love with her, but she loved Pan back, so he knocked her off the edge of a ledge, and she died, and then a pine tree sprung up there, and Pan was like, oh, forever sacred tree. But, like, pity is also associated with pine, which I was like, that's fucking weird. But because of that legend, it makes sense. Sorry, I just happened
And with pine, you can make cleaner out of it. I mean, people have been making cleaner out of pine forever.
Purity. Pine is associated with purity. So, like, and you can drink pine needle tea.
Oh my God, that is so good for you. Learned about that in the Hunger Games.
Wine from it is what killed me. I learned about it from Naked and Afraid and Alone.
I mean, if you think about it, Naked and Afraid, the Hunger Games, very similar.
Very similar. Similar, but the Hunger Games had it worse.
Yeah.
Those other guys signed up for that shit. Hope to make a lot of money. But the thing about pine cones that I did not know, and for anybody who also didn't know this, like, oh my God, it's so fucking cool.
Is it the open and closing thing, or?
Well, like, not just the opening and closing thing, but they have to be triggered by a specific environmental cue. And for each different species of the pine tree, that environmental cue can be different. So for some of them, the pine cone has to be particularly dried out before it'll open up and release the seeds. For some of them, it has to be particularly wet. For some of them, it has to go through a forest fire. For some of them, it has to go through a forest fire and then get wet.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Super cool. But okay, so like, Amber's going to get back on her soapbox for just a second because you know what?
We're talking about trees. That's we always do this.
Right? So, like, I don't try to put my beliefs on everybody. However, I shared my belief with this person who was then like, that's the most beautiful thing I've fucking heard. And I was like, okay, now I'm going to start putting that belief out there for everybody to hear because now I have more valid backing for it the more research I do on these things. Pine cones can take, like, actually over a year to be mature enough to go out into nature and do any of those things. We should not be bringing them into our homes for our own joy because if it survives to get down to where you can get it, it's also down to where it can get in the earth and those seeds have a chance of germinating and making more trees, which help make up for all those Christmas trees that get cut down. You know what? I'm going to say the same for acorns because acorns, when we get to oak, acorns take 6 to 18 months to be mature enough to make a new tree. And when you're picking it up because you see it on the ground and you want to put it on your altar, that took over a year to form and be able to germinate, and you just removed its ability to go into the earth and become a tree, a fine oak tree that's going to live for 600 to 1,000 years. And you guys really need to think about that because the more I learn about these plants, like, It's not there for our altars. If you want to enjoy it, enjoy it. But when you take it out of nature, you're taking away the ability of this thing to fruit into what it was supposed to be all along. And it worked for 6 months. It worked for a year. It worked for 18 months. It worked for 36 months to get to a point where it can get down there on the ground, where it can get planted by nature or by a squirrel and have a chance to grow into a tree. So that's my soapbox, because I already believe this way. And when I learned this about acorns and pine cones, like, literally, you talk about what the problem is. Like, not only are all these other things factors and problems, but the witchcraft awakening has half of the population thinking they're entitled to disrupt the cycles of nature because they want to put it inside on a shelf for a little while or forever. Sorry, not sorry. I just have to put that thought process out there for you, because if you haven't had it, you need to think about it, because these plants, this is literally their babies that they work years to make. And like, the reason that pine trees and oak trees sometimes drop so much at once is so that there's a small chance their genes will go on. Did you know that we can trace that back, by the way? Like, tree-wise? We can trace them back to the, like, a parent tree or a parent grove from, like, the Pleistocene era. Like, we can trace our own ancestry DNA shit.
Wow, that's interesting. I did not know that.
Yeah. Sorry, like, I'm not sorry.
No,
guys.
that's okay. Really it's your soapbox. I'm letting you have it.
Yeah, but I'm not sorry, guys, because, like, an acorn takes 18 months. Some acorns take 18 months to mature enough to be down there to make a new tree. 18 months.
Yeah, but not every acorn makes a tree.
Well, that's the point. That's, like, literally what I just was saying, though. That's why they drop so many at once. It's not so we can take one to enjoy it. It's so that maybe a tree can grow, because squirrels are going to eat them, birds are going to eat them, they're going to get...
Nature is going to take them.
Right, exactly. But for there to be a chance, like, the tree drops so many so that maybe some can become trees, because they need to become trees. Because the idea is that they will become trees. But even if they're not becoming a tree and they're feeding other things in nature, they're not sitting inside our houses. They're feeding squirrels, they're feeding birds, they're feeding bugs, they're feeding fungi. It's just, like, the more we learn about trees, the more I learn about these things. And it's like 18 months to develop an acorn. That's crazy. Like, by the time our kids are 18 months old, they're walking. You know what I mean? Like, the time it takes a human being to start saying, like, Baba, Mama, Dada, running through the house, that's how long it takes a tree to create maybe another tree. That's something to think about. I'm not trying to take the vibe down. That's something, like, to really think about.
You are totally not taking the vibe down. I'm letting you have your thing. Yeah. Please don't think that. I personally don't necessarily agree, but, like, I want you to have it. I want you to put another perspective out there using our platform so that you can touch the people that you need to touch in a non-creepy way.
And, no offense intended, so but I hope you guys all adopt this way of thinking, because, like, you know, just like bringing Christmas trees into our home, which I say with a Christmas tree in my house that has started blooming. She's blooming, guys. I don't know. Like, and there were years, if you remember, I wouldn't bring a Christmas tree in my house anymore because, like, my belief system. But my family, they insist, and they do, and she's blooming, so that's crazy. So we're going to keep watering her and see how far she goes. But
do you think it's different taking a plant and bringing it inside then? Some people will cut off a branch or something and propagate a plant inside. Isn't that similar?
If you are propagating a branch... If you're not killing the tree, I mean, that would be like you're creating new life. That wouldn't, I mean, that particular branch, instead of falling off of the tree and decomposing into the forest floor, now becomes a tree.
Mm-hmm. But you're cutting it off. You're taking it.
Yeah, I don't agree with that at all. I don't do that with my own plants.
But no, some people do.
Like, I know. Yeah, people do it all the time. That's not something I do, but it's not the same thing as removing an acorn's ability or a pine cone seed's ability of becoming a tree. Like, you're taking a branch that's otherwise going to fall off eventually and die. You are proactively taking it off and creating a new plant out of it. That's not the same as bringing the whole plant inside. It's not the same as removing the seed's ability. Which some people do. Right. And it's not something that I would do, but I'm just saying, like, it would be different than pulling in the seed and not planting it. Because if you're talking about pulling in the seed and planting it, then that's totally different, because you're not removing its ability to become a tree. You're removing the natural cycle from it, but you're not removing its ability to become a tree if you plant it. But I don't think that's where we were going with that? Or
I don't know. I don't know how I feel about it, because like we mentioned, squirrels eat them.
Right. They're part of nature.
But so are humans.
Yeah, but are we eating them? No, we're putting them on a shelf. Like, what is that doing?
I don't think you should not do something. Like, I don't agree.
I mean, I'm just saying, like, a squirrel eating it and a bird eating it, they help disperse them when they're eating them. And, like, because squirrels will plant acorns and forget about where they planted acorns. And a lot of those acorns do become oak trees. So, like, the squirrels help it 100%, even by eating some of them. They help them. Birds, they carry them off and some get dropped and they get planted, So birds help disperse them. So...
But, some people, I think yourself included, don't believe you should pick a flower. Which I don't think you should necessarily pick a flower, but I don't think it's the end of the world if you do. I don't think it's, like, horrible.
No, however, from the same line of thinking, if I pick the flower and bring it inside my house, then what pollinator is going to come by and not have the proper food source? I'm like, my husband gets me flowers, so like it's a thing.
Unfortunately, I feel like if the ancient people had that same mentality, witchcraft would be nothing that it is now. They used fresh flowers. Things were collected and used to make, totems.
Yeah, but back then they weren't endangering these natural species. So, like, these are the little ways that I can help the bees out.
So this is more of a modern thing.
Yeah, because back then they didn't have to... worry about bees dying out and there not being any fruit and vegetables anymore, which means the end of the end of everything without the pollinators.
I feel like that same argument. I love that we're having this discussion. I love having discussions like this. Could be used and has been used for things like veganism. We don't have to do this anymore, so we shouldn't do this anymore. Or, like, it wasn't bad in the olden days, but it is bad now, so we shouldn't do that. So I feel like that argument could be used for a lot of things. You know what I mean?
And the world won't get better in general if that message is ignored in any of those places, I guess. Like, just like mass producing meat,
Oh, my opinion.
I know, that's what I'm saying. Is like, if everybody ignored the message on how that's bad, it's not going to help anything. You know what I'm saying? Like, and I'm not saying it's bad to do. I'm saying I think that everybody should think about the ramifications. Even we as humans see it as, oh, this is just a rock. This is just an acorn. This is just this thing. But it's not just that, unless, it's not just that any more than our lives are just that. You know what I mean?
Feel like it goes so much deeper. I hear what you're saying, but to me it's like, at what point do you draw the line? Because you could say pulling up and turning earth to create a garden to homestead. We shouldn't do that because that's not natural. That doesn't happen naturally. You're pulling up plants that are naturally there to create a garden that is a homestead. Like, at what point
you could totally try to do a homestead where you're just living off the natural atmosphere.
You totally could. It's just unfortunately we live in a lot of people live in the suburbs, and that's not possible. You know but where would the line be drawn? Is what I'm saying. That's where I get so clouded, because I feel like it could just go and go and go and go.
But my point is, even if you let it keep going and going and going, that's not a bad thing. It's all going to make the earth a better place. That's the whole thing, is it's all about helping,
Oh, I mean, it totally will. It totally will.
The world dying as a planet, maybe that's predestined to happen. But it breaks my heart for humanity to be the reason it happens. You know what I'm saying?
And it sucks that they're, you say, for example, and I feel like this is part of the topic. So, sorry for getting off of trees, guys, but, we were just talking and it didn't get recorded. Society has made it to where certain things are
expected
and with the Christmas tree, you know what I mean? It's expected to have a Christmas tree.
Even though I abstained for years, I tried all sorts of different ways.
The cars, we shouldn't be living this way, but you have to drive your car because you have to get people to work. Amber works at
I run a transportation company.
It's for our
community. Yeah, I take community members to their doctor's appointments that are blind, that have seizures, people who cannot drive.
And it's just again, it's who is pushing who, or society. It's all pushing everything just to destroy Earth.
It is.
We mentioned picking flowers. You said, well, my husband brings me flowers because that was pushed by society and expectations.
It was pushed by me. It was
I'm sorry, I didn't mean
because of all those things.
Because of all those
things.
Exactly.
I was like, well, you don't really love me if you don't bring me
flowers.
And I'm not. And I don't know that I ever said those words, guys. I'm not a horrible wife.
Witchcraft and TikTok. Well, we've got social media saying, well, it's okay. Put this on your altar. All of these things that are bad for the earth are being pushed at us and expected of us, and sometimes they're unavoidable. Not all the time, but sometimes. Again, I mentioned the Christmas tree because you're my family expects that, or my family wants that. It's
for sure.
It's
absolutely.
And it's are these things bad, or is it because we're so fucking overpopulated that we're all doing one thing? We're not doing it the old way, like you said.
Okay, so if you actually look at how much land is uninhabited versus how much land is inhabited, there's so much uninhabited land. We're just concentrated.
We're pushed in the cities. All in one.
We're pushed into the cities on purpose. They do it on purpose. It has been
because they'll charge you, or they'll come at you if you live in areas that are not
exactly. Yes,
and in these areas that, oh my gosh, it's crazy.
No, it's crazy. But guys, look into it. Literally, if you look at how much land there is per the actual amount of human beings there are,
Alaska.
There's plenty of land for people to live on. But they have us convinced because all
we can't
media
survive.
Is propaganda.
Because we can't survive without them. We can't survive on our own in the woods. We can't survive on our own. Wow.
You need us. That water's not clean water. Yeah, it's not clean water because you dumped chemicals in it.
Because of you. Yeah.
They
did it on purpose.
They did.
Oh my God.
I
know this is a tree episode, but we're
what cleanses the earth?
Trees. What produces fucking oxygen?
Trees. But and the trees that we've chosen, right? They all represent the cyclical cycle of life.
No, they do. So going into oak.
Yes.
We've got strength with the oak. Now the oak has been cut down for centuries, but that's because it's so strong. We've been using it to build our houses. Yes, using it to build our houses, to build tables and furniture, like you mentioned.
And not just that, but the tannins are so high in it. We use it to tan leather. We've used it to make other stuff, not pottery. I wrote so many little notes because on the tree episode,
they're fun.
It is. I like to write the notes because when I write things, they stick in my head better. But then I can't, we do 3 trees at a time, so some of it gets a little jumbled.
Right.
But it's we use the oak for so many different things, so much like we do the pine, actually. But white oak is used medicinally.
Oh, that's right. Doesn't it have natural aspirin in it? Is that it? Yeah.
Well, no, that's not natural aspirin. That's willow.
Okay.
It has natural antiseptic and astringent properties because it's so high in tannins.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Wow, that is so interesting. And like when I hear oak again, I just think strong grandfather, which it's very masculine energy. And that's why I associate it with protection. Also, the protection comes to me because we've been using it to build our houses. We've been using it to build our structures to keep us protected from the weather.
Well, and that strength and durability, it makes sense from the standpoint that like our ancient peoples viewed the oak as the world tree, you know, the roots being the foundation that we live on and the trunk being that which we live in and the heavens existing up in the branches. And as I said to Maddie in the background when we were talking about this beforehand, like the oak is the youngest of the three trees that we're discussing today. The holly is the oldest. The pine then came next, and then the oak is youngest. And I just imagine our ancestors coming out of the cave systems that they've been living in, and they see this gigantic, magnificent oak tree that provides the shade from the sun and
probably fire, because oak is the one most likely to get hit
by lightning. Yes. Oh my God, I didn't even think about that, but they see it as life-giving for that because like so many different societies actually worship oak trees. Slavic people worship oak trees and all of the main ceremonies and like even like not marital disputes, legal disputes happen in front of oak trees.
Right,
because they're so holy. Mm-hmm. You don't want to desecrate the ground of the holy tree by lying or something.
And marriages.
Yes.
Now, I do have to say, it's really cool that we mentioned that holly is the oldest out of all of them because, throwback to our previous trees episodes, the trees with leaves and textures like holly, they predate pollinators and bees. So they have to be they have to be waxy, they have to be strong so that their pollinators could stay on. So I've noticed even to this day, if I see a tree, I'm like, that's an ancient tree. When you do that too, I'm like, wow.
Every time I see a magnolia, I'm like,
I know, you're old. And like the leaves. And something really cool. So I don't know if it's holly. I can't remember if it was holly. It was some tree. It may have been holly. So it's like the higher up on the tree, the more rounded the leaves are. Oh, is that oak? Okay, and then the lower, they get more spiky because people be eating them. Not people, but animals be eating them.
Okay, maybe so that was like holly, deer. But oak also has more rounded at the top, but it didn't say anything about spiky. I think it's holly. Deer.
Because like deer will come up and munch on them, and then they'll regrow spiky.
Yeah, but also like trees grow from the top, right?
Right.
So like the ones at the bottom would be the oldest and the most like, you know what I'm saying? Like the hardest. Yeah, that's
which
the
is
word.
why I totally believe trees.
I couldn't remember the word hardest.
Trees think. You know,
yeah, they do. And in our plant episode, go back to season 1, guys. We talk about plants.
They did
things.
Oh,
yeah,
sentient.
They like literally, they are sentient, and they like literally react to the stimuli of their environment. Like a tobacco plant that changed not only the shape and color of its flowers, but also when it bloomed to encourage a different pollinator from the one that was eating it out of house and home.
Yeah.
Like seriously,
it's so crazy.
They respond. It is crazy. And
but holly is very fertility. Also, holly has a more feminine energy, which makes sense to me because the berries are red and you know what I mean.
Well, and like holly are actually they alternate male and female plants, and so the female plants are the ones that the summertime droops that they have are white, and the male ones are the
red
droops
ones
are yellow.
Oh, really?
The berries, like so, the droops are. They're not actual berries. They're little fruits of some kind, but they're droops. The word is droop, and I didn't take down what other droops are. But the droops on the male and the female, they're slightly different colored. But to my understanding, both plants, their fruits turn red in the winter. I don't remember reading that it was one or the other, but I found it interesting that like holly plants are both male and female alternating so that they can be pollinated with each other. You know what I mean?
And like what's
because
cool,
they know they're sentient.
Holly was brought into ancient people's houses around this time of year or Yule time for protection. which again we got the spikies on there.
Yes, exactly.
And also fertility as well. It was
and
just
the life cycle, because the red and the green,
rebirth.
Yeah, showing that like it gave a promise of the coming sun.
Yes, exactly.
Because that light in the darkness.
And we need all of these things to survive. That's why I'm so glad that we did this. We've got life, we've got the strength to survive, and the strength to hold on, and then holly, which is the promise.
And I have to share this. I learned during the oak research, so there's a thing called clades in plants. And I was like, clade, C-L-A-D-E, like glade, but with a C.
Okay.
And I was like, what is that? So a clade is, how I was saying, like, plants can literally be traced back ancestrally. That's what a clade is. And oak trees come from 2 specific clades. So they can be traced back to 2.
All the way to the beginning.
All the way to the beginning, to 2 specific different, like, groves or different individuals of oak trees. Wow. Like, now granted, there's over, like, 500 species today. But, like, they can all be traced back to these 2 OGs. And I just thought that was so interesting. I wanted to bring it up because I'd never heard of clades before. And there's, like, little terms that I learn each time we do one of these episodes. And I just had to share clades with everybody.
No, thank you. That's very interesting.
It is, because, like, it comes up in the pine one, too. But it's not as specific as the 2 different clades from the oaks. But in addition to, like, talking about old stuff, I just have to bring up the granite oak in Bulgaria has an estimated age of 1,637 years old, and it is thought to be the oldest oak tree in Europe. And then here in California, we have the, please forgive my pronunciation, the Huasal tree in California, which is at least 1,000 years old. Possibly
I just love looking at big trees. That's why I'm looking it up. I love. Like, now the pine was not like what I expected. The trunk was very huge.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So what was the oldest oak?
Granite oak. It's Granit, and then space oak in Bulgaria.
Okay, I see it.
And
I
then
love looking at big trees.
That's the California one, which I'm not going to try and butcher that word again. I apologize, guys.
Oh my God, poor guy. I feel he's so heavy they're holding him up. Because oaks get so old and they get so heavy and they start to lean. They really do.
And they're actually really beautiful when they lean. And like the oak is so sacred in so many different pantheons, but especially the Celtics. So I learned in this research that the word druid is actually derived from the same word as oak. Or it means the same thing as oak.
Yes.
And that made our friend that changed his name make a lot more sense.
No idea. Oh, okay, that makes sense. You know, I just have to say this one in Bulgaria, my heart for this little tree, I say little tree, it's like the oldest fucking oak. It's just like, that is a grandpa. That is a grandpa, and he's got like his cane. That's just like, you know, and he's got his cane, and they're just like, hold on
like
to grandpa.
Cotton Hill, yes. His shins, but he's still going.
I love him so much. I love that they hooked that up, because it just reminds me of a grandpa with a cane. That is the energy. They're like, if he falls over, he's gone. He's going to break a hip.
And the one last thing that I wanted to mention about oak, especially from the magical perspective, was one of the reasons that the Druids found it so magical of a tree was that mistletoe happened to grow in it a lot, and mistletoe was one of their most highly magical plants.
Did we do an episode on mistletoe?
No, not yet.
Okay, not yet. No,
we should.
Well, we should do that. We'll have to do that next year.
Next year, yeah, because like I just thought that was really interesting.
That
like
is interesting.
All the reasons and like, you know, just I don't know, like because like okay, so oak leaves, like holly leaves get worn as a crown, but oak leaves get worn as a crown by kings.
Yes.
Because they're representing those thunder gods, because oak trees are also associated with those thunder gods. And so, like, think about ancient kings, they are personifying the gods that you know, they're ruling over. So it makes sense all those, you know,
vice versa.
Yeah, if you ever wondered why they wear oak leaf crowns, I never understood why it was oak leaves, but that's why. It's because it's like the head gods. You know what I mean? Or at least the sky gods.
Yes,
yeah.
I like that. I like that, Will.
And holly is like, it is so old. It is from when, and I don't know what these places are, but when the earth mass split into Gondwan and I can't read my own handwriting, guys. Lacerage.
Is it like Pangea type thing?
Yeah, like I think it's either post-Pangea or pre-Pangea. Like the holly is so old. Like, and I kind of love how like these trees stair-step each other, and like the holly and the oak are so associated. The holly's Greek name is something oak. Oh, holm oak or evergreen oak, because it's like so associated with the oak tree.
Like, which makes sense because the holly god and the oak king.
Yeah,
it all just goes together.
It does. And like what I find really interesting about holly in conjunction to the other two trees is the wood from the holly tree. It's used much more decoratively, whereas these other ones, it's used functionally.
Yes, for physical health, or I'm sorry, for like sickness, physical health. We've got the vitamins, and then we've got the making things, and then we've got the decorative. Again, they just go so well.
They really do. And like holly, I didn't see any part that humans can consume. Like the berries will make us sick.
Yeah,
the
I don't think
aren't
so.
For us. It's all for like animals, which makes sense because it's a winter plant, so it should be there for animals to eat.
Yeah, that does make sense. I wonder if that's
I don't know.
Intentional. Of course it is. It's the universe.
Right, and also all of these trees, they have that whole like representation of like the life cycle associated with them, and most of them are also associated with crossing over between the worlds. Especially I read it with the oak and the holly, but I'm pretty sure I read that with the pine as well because of making the wine from the needles and all that, and being associated with Dionysus. I don't know. I just like was trying to get out the few things that I was like, these are things I really, really wanted to say about these plants. Also, holly magically was thought to control horses.
Is that a Celtic thing?
Yes, it was.
I figured because the horses are really like very special in Celtic lore because the fairies wrote them.
Yeah.
So that's what I thought.
And you say that if you brought you were talking about people bringing holly bows in the wintertime. It was said, especially in Celtic lore, when you brought them in, you were bringing the fairies in and giving them a warm shelter in the winter, and they would then do like
blessing.
Good on your household.
Oh my god, I may have to. I'm like, wait, do I want to do that? Because I was like, I love that. Actually.
Right? Well, and then like from the like animal perspective, it gives birds a safe place to nest because the pointy leaves keep predators out.
Wow, that is so interesting.
I don't know. What do you guys think about the holly tree, which is not just a shrub like I originally thought until Maddie told me, like, no, it's a tree.
No, it's a tree.
And then I learned that all shrubs are trees. Like, it's
really?
Yeah, if it's a shrub, it can be a tree.
It just depends on the environment that they grow?
Yes. Or like they're like we have like a lot of shrubs that we use in our like American landscaping that would grow into huge trees if we didn't constantly cut them down to keep them shrubs.
Simply for decorations.
Yes, exactly.
Fuck that.
Crazy.
Dude, fuck that.
So, what did you guys think of our?
Did you learn anything?
Yeah, the eternal cycle trees. I like that.
I like that. What the fuck? Sorry guys, I'm trying to do my hair. If you're not watching on YouTube, don't forget to like and subscribe. But that was not what I was going to say. If you're not watching on YouTube, you can't see me fuck up my hair. So go check out our YouTube and see me fuck up my hair. And if you are watching on YouTube, don't forget to like and subscribe.
Yes, and comment because it helps our algorithm. I was gonna be like, and go ahead if you go over just to see Maddie fuck up her hair, maybe go ahead and like and subscribe.
Right.
I'm just saying.
Like, dude, I got halfway down that fucking braid and now I have to start all over. And I got long ass hair too. You can also find us on the X at Classiest Witches.
Yes. Because we are the classiest witches, Otherwise, you can find us on all the platforms at Witches Talking Tarot, such as Patreon, which thank you so much to Victoria,
Death by DVD,
Pam,
and Melissa.
Thanks for coming to sit with us, Spell Guys.